when sleeping giants rise.
Will it roar back, deadlier than before?
For stories that get you closer to life, think Wednesday.
Tonight, starting at 7 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Arizona PBS provides you great musical performances all year long. And now we have some of the best seats for you to see some of your favorite acts live and in concert. Arizona PBS Box Office presents a backstage pass for you to meet world-class performers and offers a chance to see exciting performances before they sell out. This month, Arizona PBS Box Office presents 1964 Beatles Tribute Band, appearing at the Celebrity Theater on Friday, November 16th.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World.
PBS Online. Share, tweet, watch.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Friendship Village Tempe, a retirement community for over 30 years, offers independent living with residency options, lifelong learning classes, as well as continuing care. Information at friendshipvillageaz.com.
When you cast your vote in the upcoming election, you connect with issues that hit close to home. Clean Elections provides voter resources and tools so you can vote informed on August 28th. Connect with the facts at azcleanelections.gov.
From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
This is the worst storm that the Florida Panhandle has seen in more than 100 years.
Hurricane Michael has made landfall with winds up to 155 miles per hour. But in the west, Tropical Storm Sergio may bring strong winds and floodwaters to parts of Arizona.
Plus, we're looking at voter registration numbers and finding out what led to a final push of new voters.
And we take a look at how Prop 305 might influence the school voucher program and what this could mean for Arizona students.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Bryce Newberry.
And I'm Jennifer Alvarez. Thanks for joining us.
All eyes are on Hurricane Michael as the storm continues to pound through parts of the southeast tonight. The storm made landfall as a Category 4 storm with sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. That's just 1 mile per hour shy of a Category 5 storm. Hurricane Michael weakened to a Category 3 storm this afternoon. The storm has the potential to devastate parts of Florida as the most powerful storm for the area in recorded history. Michael is also the most powerful storm to hit the U.S. since 1992. The storm has already snapped trees and torn off roofs.
God bless you all. That's my message, because that's what it is. The storm is there. We want to get down there as soon as possible. At the same time, I don't want to go down where we're interfering with the people, first responders, the FEMA people. I want them to focus on the storm, not me.
President Trump says he hopes to visit the area by either Sunday or Monday. We'll have the latest on the trajectory of the storm coming up in weather.
Meanwhile, a powerful storm in the Pacific is threatening parts of Arizona. What was once Hurricane Sergio has now weakened into a tropical storm. Sergio is heading toward the western coast of Mexico and has the potential to bring rainfall to Arizona as it moves inland.
An overburdened Department of Homeland Security released hundreds of migrant families from detention centers in southern Arizona this weekend. And senators pressed Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen for details on those releases at a hearing this morning. Cronkite News reporter Charlene Santiago is in our Washington bureau, and she was at the hearing this morning.
The hearing touched on everything from cybersecurity to terrorism. But Arizona Senator Jon Kyl had a question that hit much closer to home.
What can we tell the community?
The community he was referring to is Yuma, one of several where he said officials and citizens were taken by surprise recently when hundreds of immigrant families were released to local nonprofits. DHS Secretary Christian Nielsen said there are simply too many immigrant families to process and not enough space. But Kyle was looking for assurances for local residents.
If these reviews are not being done because the numbers are too overwhelming, then the fact is that people in Yuma are going to be threatened to some extent by an enormous number of illegal entrants into the country, and some of whom may not be making asylum claims.
Prior to this weekend, DHS would have helped migrants who were waiting for a hearing by reaching out to family members already in the U.S. and finding transportation. With recent surge in families, DHS has turned to local nonprofits to help the immigrant families while they wait for their hearing. Nielsen said the families have to be released to obey a court ruling that limits detention of children to no more than 20 days. The solution, she says, is on Congress.
My department will continue to ask Congress to pass legislation to clarify that families can be detained until they are removed. If they have an asylum claim, they can be detained until we can adjudicate that asylum claim.
But while Nielsen pressed Congress, protesters who walked out at the start of her testimony said DHS needs to work harder to reunify the children it has in custody who haven't seen their parents since they were separated at the border.
I'm here as a mom. I'm here as someone who cares deeply about the millions of children who were separated from their parents.
While the families are no longer in custody, they're also not completely free. ICE officials say these families are being paroled and supervised, and they've all been given an immigration court date. In Washington, Charlene Santiago, Cronkite News.
Federal officials say reports of child abuse led to the closure of a Phoenix area shelter for unaccompanied migrant children. Southwest Keys Hacienda del Sol shelter shut down Friday, but officials did not reveal the reason for the closure until yesterday. Officials say the staff members at the shelter who physically abused 3 children have now been fired.
Early voting for November's midterm election has officially begun. Mail-in ballots for the elections were mailed out today. Early ballots may be turned in to any of the Maricopa County election offices or to any early voting site. Early voters can also cast their ballot in person weekdays starting today until November 2nd at the Maricopa County elections offices.
A rush to register before the deadline. Approximately 58,000 Arizonans registered or made changes to the registration in the last 2 days. Cronkite News reporter John Cardinelli looked into why these numbers are higher than in the past.
Of those 58,000 voters, 70% of them came from Maricopa County, which is a huge amount of registrations for a non-presidential election year. According to the Secretary of State's office, 40,000 voters registered just yesterday alone. In the 2016 election, 18,000 voters registered on the final day. So, why such a big difference? Eric Spencer, who is the state elections director, says there are 2 reasons. First, voter interest has gone up because of the current political climate. Second, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all have had an increased emphasis on voter registration.
Most of the calls that I took yesterday from people seeking to make a change were people who were motivated through something they received on Facebook or through Rock the Vote. And so it's a double-edged sword. Those social media platforms spurred people to make a change, but you can't actually affect your registration record through those websites.
Eric and his team spent until midnight yesterday assisting people over the phone who were trying to register last minute. He hopes that his team's effort breeds confidence in the electoral system. John Cardinelli, Cronkite News.
Voters will determine a possible expansion of the Empowerment Scholarship Accounts program in the November election. But what is this program? Reporter Gabriela Becerra explains the difference between a yes and a no vote on Proposition 305.
The Empowerment Scholarships are more commonly known as vouchers. They provide families with funding to choose alternative educational services that best fit their child's needs, according to the Arizona Department of Education. A vote yes on Prop 305 is a vote to expand and make every public school student eligible for the Empowerment Scholarship Program.
Empowerment scholarships allow parents to take a portion of the funds that the school would have gotten for their child. It's only 90% of the funds. And to use that scholarship to help empower their children in an educational environment in which they can thrive.
Jenny Clark says her sons entered the ESA program at the start of the school year because they have dyslexia and dysgraphia and couldn't get the help they needed in their school district.
We use it to pay for qualified tutors and therapists and dyslexic specific curriculum for them.
The Arizona Department of Education administers funding using state tax dollars for expenses to be used for tuition, fees, books, and tutoring, according to Senate Bill 1431. A vote no on Prop 305 would overturn Senate Bill 1431 and keep the eligibility for the program as it is.
They're already going to the small group of kids who need that kind of alternative. And the other 95% of kids, the other 1 million kids in Arizona, are choosing to go to public schools. We don't want to cut funding from the choices that all of those people are making.
Save Our Schools Arizona spokesperson Dawn Penich-Thacker says the program would take funding away from public schools. Right now, the program is only accessible to students with disabilities or guardians that are legally deaf, blind, or on active military duty, students that are living on Indian reservation, attending a D or F school, a ward of the court, or with siblings already in the program. If the expansion passes, up to 30,000 vouchers will phase in by the year 2023. But if the current legislation stands, approximately 5,500 students will be added to the program annually through fiscal year 2023. In the Broadcast Center, Gabriela Becerra, Cronkite News.
Arizona Senator Jon Kyl has been granted an extension to report his lobbying income. According to Politico, Kyl won't have to report the numbers until next year. Kyl has said he will likely only serve as a senator until the end of this year. That means the lobbying income reports won't be due until after he's out of office.
Arizona has one of the highest rates of suicide nationwide.
And a new study from ASU shows that some demographics are more likely to die by suicide than others. Coming up on Cronkite News, we're breaking down those numbers.
Plus, one-size-fits-all healthcare may not work for everyone. How some doctors are moving toward more personalized treatment options.
Join Emmy Award-winning CNN anchor Anderson Cooper as he receives the 2018 Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism. Attracting industry leaders from the media, politics, business, and education. The award luncheon is the Cronkite School's signature fundraising event. Tickets for the luncheon ceremony on Wednesday, October 17th at the Sheraton Grand in Phoenix are available for sale at cronkite.asu.edu/luncheon or call 602-496-0482.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
The ASU Center for Violence Prevention and Community Safety and the Arizona Violent Death Reporting System has released new reports on suicides in Arizona. They reported that men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than women in Arizona. In 2016 alone, a total of 985 men and 280 women lost their life to suicide. They found that men the age of 75 and older had the highest rate of suicide at nearly 51 suicides per 100,000 people, the highest age group for women, and those aged 55 to 64 years old at nearly 16 suicides per 100,000 people.
Today marks the 26th anniversary of World Mental Health Day. This year's primary focus is promoting awareness among adolescents and helping parents, teachers, and peers to be better allies.
One man's complex medical condition reveals a trend toward personalized care. Reporter Charisma Sandoval explains how one-size-fits-all prescriptions are giving way to treating patients as individuals.
Remy Marceau's case was rare. Doctor after doctor thought he couldn't do outdoor activities because low potassium made him dehydrated. It wasn't until he was 19 years old that he found out he had a rare kidney disorder called Bartter syndrome.
Syndrome progressively got worse at a rate that they had really never seen. And by the time I was 22, I was doing an infusion every day for 8 hours to replace my electrolytes and all of my fluids.
His diagnosis led to a unique result. Both of his kidneys were removed and 2 transplants were performed. He says all his doctors, pharmacists, and dietitian worked together to give him a personalized treatment plan that would help him return to the life he once lived.
Getting back to being outside, being active, working out, and doing all those things that a normal person would do, that's what I've looked forward to the most.
And doctors are saying the want for customized care is only going to grow.
We really try to look at each patient as a unique person, and we look at not only the science in terms of the clinical aspects of their care, but also looking at their mind, their body, their spirit, looking at like their relationships in their life, looking at like the broader context of who they are and taking a holistic picture.
According to Dr. Paul Andrews of the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, tech-savvy patients are becoming more educated about their conditions before they reach out for medical treatment.
A lot of the people who are coming in now are very sophisticated about what's going on in their health, especially the younger they are and they grew up in the digital world.
Remy Marceau says medical care shaped to his needs made all the difference in his health, and he's on his way to recovery.
When you have that customized care, especially in a complex health situation where it's not just your typical flu that you get once a year, it makes a huge difference as far as communication, treatment, and just outcome.
In Phoenix, Charisma Sandoval, Cronkite News.
Several hospitals have expanded their facilities in recent years. The Mayo Clinic plans to nearly double the size of its Phoenix campus over the next 5 years.
Are 3 fish with different names really just one species?
Next on Cronkite News, that confusion could lead to a native fish not needing protection under endangered species laws.
Pounds through parts of the East Coast. I'll tell you who will be impacted most and when coming up.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland, in Washington, in Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. The 2018 election season has arrived. Join us for primary and general election debates. Right here, meet the candidates and hear their positions. Arizona Horizon, your source for what matters most this election season. Only on Arizona PBS.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
Is it endangered or not? That's the question over the round-tailed chub, a type of fish native to Arizona. The Tucson-based Center for Biological Diversity is suing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for not protecting it. But the Arizona Game and Fish Department says there's no reason to worry. The species is doing just fine.
The round-tailed chub is highly imperiled.
Brian Suggy is the senior attorney for the Center for Biological Diversity. In August, the agency sued the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for not protecting the round-tailed chub as an endangered species. Some threats to the native fish include non-native species of fish, climate change, dam construction, and development around streams.
They were at the point of a proposed listing. They've now withdrawn that listing because of this taxonomic uncertainty, with the round-tailed chub being redefined to now include what was previously known as the headwater chub and the Gila chub.
In 2017, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service said new scientific information indicated 3 species were actually 1. Suddenly, the chub population increased enough that the round-tailed chub was no longer threatened.
It's really hard to distinguish the species. They look very similar. It became increasingly complicated when we were finding new populations of chub to know which they were.
Julie Carter manages the statewide Native Aquatics program for the Arizona Game and Fish Department.
We try to protect existing populations, start new populations, and remove threats.
A hatchery in northern Arizona works to repopulate the state's streams with round-tailed chub.
And we let them spawn naturally every year in this pond. We take out the young of the year in the wintertime once they're big enough to handle a pond harvest. And we take those fish out and stock them into Verde River, into either the main channel or into tributaries of the Verde River.
Depending on the year, hundreds up to tens of thousands of round-tailed chub are sent into streams. The Game and Fish Department says there's no reason to worry about the population going extinct. Regardless, the Center for Biological Diversity wants action.
We just want Fish and Wildlife Service to go back and do another status review and then decide whether or not to issue a proposed rule in a time frame that would be around a year.
The U.S. Department of Justice, which represents the Fish and Wildlife Service, has until next Friday to file a response to the lawsuit. A spokesman for the service said they don't comment on ongoing litigation.
Hurricane Michael is pounding through the East Coast, while back at home we're sitting at below average temperatures. Haley Brand is tracking the latest.
Tracking the latest on Hurricane Michael right now. That storm did make landfall near Panama City earlier this morning, currently sitting in the northern part of the Florida Panhandle. That storm's going to move up through parts of Georgia, the Carolinas, and exiting out back into the Atlantic Ocean by Friday. That means this storm is moving very quickly and bringing with it lots of rainfall. The areas most impacted by the storm can expect about a foot of rain. And we are even tracking our own tropical system here over in the southwest. This is Tropical Storm Sergio. It was weakened from a hurricane down to a tropical storm earlier this week, bringing a lot of that rainfall to the western part of Mexico and even the southern part of Arizona. And we can begin to feel the impacts of that storm as early as tomorrow. Most of that moisture going to come in on Friday to the southern part of the state, with isolated chances here in Phoenix for tomorrow all the way through Monday. Our storm chances are going to persist throughout the weekend, but take a look at these highs. We're going to stay in those low 80s to upper 70s for the most of this week, and it's going to be a beautiful week. In the Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Haley Brand.
An Arizonan flute player is getting national recognition.
Next on Cronkite News, one musician is finding ways to produce new sounds with an ancient instrument.
Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
I'm Jose Cardenas, host of Horizonte. Each week, we bring you experts and community leaders to discuss the issues that are vital to our community here in Arizona. We cover the stories that affect and inspire us and our families, and talk to the newsmakers who shape the communities where we live. Horizonte is your source and your voice for what matters most here on Arizona PBS.
Here at Cronkite News, we have producers who craft shows that make an impact on our community. Our broadcasts allow students to be involved in all levels of production, from producing to directing. We are guided by highly respected professionals who mentor the journalists of tomorrow. From technical directing to teleprompting and beyond, our production crew works tirelessly to produce meaningful and award-winning shows. We are Cronkite News on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
A Phoenix artist has a contemporary sound, but is using an ancient instrument.
Sammy Giebers has more on a local indigenous artist and his take on the Native American flute.
Randy Kemp admits that when he plays the Native American flute, it doesn't always have that traditional sound.
I understand some people don't even like the way I'm playing the flute music now because it's more of that contemporary, fast-paced, very like, what was that? 6, 7, 8 flutes that I have to keep in rotation.
He's self-taught and uses the contemporary sound of this ancient instrument in his group's latest album. His CD is now nominated for a Native American Music Award, but not before its release was put on hold.
I actually flatlined. In 2016, I had a heart attack.
Kemp's daughter, Raquel, remembers those times all too well.
There was just so much stuff that was unfinished, and I think maybe that's what, that's probably, why he pulled through too, is the CD is, one of the things that he needed to do.
Kemp often alludes to issues natives face today in his music. And another problem, he says that he sees less and less people picking up the Native American flute.
It's thinning out. So I don't know what's happening, if it's because of the time involved that it takes to learn or having access to some of these flutes.
But he hopes that this ancient instrument that has been a part of history for thousands of years will continue to play a role today. In Phoenix, Sammy Giebers, Cronkite News.
Kemp's group Artificial Red is nominated for Best New or Debut Duo or Group of the Year for the Native American Music Awards for their work on their new CD, Res Radio.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and the PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, we will hear from the 2 candidates for State Attorney General. Incumbent Republican Mark Brnovich will face off with Democratic challenger January Contreras. That's the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, Miles O'Brien continues his look at the challenges of regulating pesticides and what it means to farming. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Deanne Griebel, now with Moores & Cabot Investments, serving investors since 1890, proudly supports quality programming on 8 Arizona PBS, 480-725-9602.
AARP in Phoenix thinks today should be your day. So get active and help keep Phoenix in motion, or get involved in improving your community. Take on today and every day. Learn how at aarp.org/Phoenix.
In the heart of Africa lie 2 of the world's most dangerous volcanoes. When will they erupt again? An international team of scientists plunges into the craters of these twin giants to learn their secrets, predict future eruptions, and save lives.
Avoid another disaster.
Volcano on Fire and Volcano on the Brink on Nova.
Tonight, starting at 8 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Programs on Arizona PBS are funded in part by a gift from the estate of Winifred Gegg. For more information on how to include Arizona PBS in your estate plans, call 602-496-8888.
Coming soon to Arizona PBS.
Next time on Father Brown, an evil killer Father Brown put behind bars is free.
Knowing Catherine Corvin, she will want to torment me.
And after a suspicious death,
She hanged herself.
Father Brown is certain she's the culprit.
Tell the truth!
Father Brown.
Saturday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Next time on the Dr. Blake Mysteries.
Miss Jacqueline Maddox.
A movie star is killed during a performance.
Whoever did this must still be in the building.
The weapon was poison.
It'd have to be an incredibly powerful toxin. It was the roses.
The Dr. Blake Mysteries.
Saturday night at 8 on Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Support comes from Citizens Clean Elections Commission, your source for unbiased voter information. Watch an upcoming debate and vote informed this election. Visit